Hello, it's Angela, and welcome back to my channel, Literature Science Alliance. Today, we're going to discuss Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere. Now, specifically, I am going to discuss what the Cosmere is, and if you want to get into it, what order I would recommend reading the books in Brandon Sanderson's adult fantasy universe. So, the Cosmere. The Cosmere is a multiverse that Brandon Sanderson has been writing, and it is awesome. It's his universe, literally. He has different planets and different solar systems, different worlds that are all in the same universe. And we don't actually know like a whole lot about it, but we get little Easter eggs along the way as fans. There are some crossovers, there are some world hoppers. It's really cool. Now, that said, it can sound daunting, right? There's this big Cosmere and all these books Brandon writes because he's so prolific. Where do I start? Well, the easy answer, and I promise this answer works because it's what I did, is you read them in publication order. I didn't have a choice. I started reading the Cosmere in 2007 when there were only 3 books. So I have always been reading these in publication order, and it's worked great for me. I honestly feel like I've had some of my best book moments because I have read these in publication order. Now, that said, I know many people start in different places and still have a great time. This is just my recommendation, and I just want to go through why I recommend it this way so you can decide for yourself. We're all humans. We all make our own choices. These are books. It's entertainment. So, if you have a different way of doing it, you're not wrong. If you have already started reading the Cosmere and you're not doing exactly what I'm saying, don't freak out. You are still going to have a great time. Because at its core, you can pick up any series in the Cosmere and it should not matter. They're all self-contained stories. With the exception, of course, you should not read Mistborn Era 2 before Mistborn Era 1. But I feel like that's obvious, but that's probably the largest exception. So, with all those caveats out of the way, if you want to know why I recommend publication order, let's just dive right in. So, the first book that Brandon Sanderson had published is Elantris, which, if you are new here, one of my favorite Brandon Sanderson books. It was the first one I read. It's the book that got me into adult fantasy. It's the book that reminded me I love to read. It's a wonderful story. I reread it every 3 or 4 years. It's amazing. It's a great starting point even if you aren't into fantasy. I have given this to a lot of family and friends who do not read high fantasy, and they really like it. It's got great intrigue, amazing characters. It's a wonderful starting point, especially if you're looking to see, is Brandon Sanderson a writer that I will enjoy reading? This is a wonderful starting point for that, because as of right now, it's a standalone. And yes, it will become a trilogy one day, but that doesn't matter. This is a complete story. People also start with Mistborn, The Final Empire, which is also a wonderful starting point. This actually is the first one he wrote. Elantris was the first one that got published. I would say either one is a great starting point. I, depending on my friend, will give them either Mistborn or Elantris for Christmas. I give Mistborn to people who like more action-packed plots. I feel like Elantris is very great with world building and characters, but Mistborn really has this really good fast-paced plot, so if I have a friend who I know is more engaged by that, I will give them the Mistborn book, because although it's the start of a trilogy, also a self-contained story, and because, let's be real, I love Brandon Sanderson, I want to make sure that, they get just as invested as I do, so I might give them the Mistborn trilogy. So I feel like either one of those are great starting points, and they're both at the start of publication order. Now, I think where I'm the most controversial compared to most people who read Sanderson on BookTube is I really do believe that before you read the Stormlight Archive, you should read Warbreaker. I know people either love it or hate it for some reason. I don't actually understand the controversy behind why some people love it or don't, but this is a wonderful, funny Brandon Sanderson standalone. Again, will be a trilogy one day, doesn't matter right now. It's also great if, say, you like YA fantasy. This has a lot of things I like in YA fantasy. It's got a light Beauty and the Beast retelling. It's it really reminds me of a lot of YA that I have been picking up and have picked up in the past. The magic system's just gorgeous. I mean, it's all color-based, so the descriptions are just really fun. The characters make me laugh. It's a great book. But the reason why I say you should read it before Stormlight is there are the largest crossovers from this book into the Stormlight archives. Just period. And it's not even just small Easter eggs that you'd only find if you went on Reddit. There are huge crossovers. And so if you care about experiencing that, then I would read this first. Now, if you don't care, you don't care. It's not a big deal then. I just know one of my favorite moments happened because I read this before the Stormlight archives. Now, we're at the point where everything doesn't matter as much, in my opinion. Stormlight and Mistborn Era 2 have both been publication released interweaving of each other, and I think you could read either one of them straight through without having any concerns. Although, a little anecdote about Alloy of Law, the start of Mistborn Era 2, I hear a lot on BookTube about how people are like, this is such a weird thing, it's so different from Era 1, it's so short. Well, for those of you who don't know, us Sanderson fans had a bit of a drought while he was finishing Wheel of Time, for all of you Wheel of Time fans, and this is all we got. And it was wonderful, and we just drank it right up because we didn't have anything else to read. So, yes, is Mistborn Era 2 very different from Mistborn Era 1? But it is. But I still really enjoy it. It has one of my favorite female characters in it. And, I think really his humor starts to become the best in this trilogy, but obviously an opinion. But you can read, in my opinion, Era 2 straight after Era 1. Nothing will really matter crossovers-wise, and if you've read Warbreaker, you can read the Stormlight archives then straight through, except there is a novella exception, so you might have the standalone. I just have the Arcanum Unbound. So this is the entire Cosmere short story collection up to now, and in it there's a story called Edge Dancer. This is the story between Words of Radiance, the second Stormlight archive, and Oathbringer, the third Stormlight archive. I highly recommend reading it. It's a scene that takes place between those two books with a character that is in both books. So I would highly recommend reading it. I've only read Oathbringer once, but I really do feel like it was important. And also, I want to say with this book, you can read almost everything except Edge Dancer and The Secrets of Mistborn. I would not read The Secrets of Mistborn till after The Bands of Mourning because it would be a huge spoiler. I would for sure not read it until after Hero of Ages, which is the third Mistborn Era 1 book. If you don't care about Era 2, you could read it after that, but it is huge spoilers. Like, that's not even just world-building crossover, it's gigantic spoilers. But other than that, you can read any of the short stories in any order. You can even read, there's a short story called The Emperor's Soul, which takes place in the world of Elantris. You could read this before Elantris. Honestly, if no one told me it was the same world, I wouldn't have known. So yeah, that's my reasoning behind publication order. Again, don't freak out if you've already started and aren't in publication order. You're still going to have a great time. I just keep finding myself telling people like, you should read this here because of this thing, and I just wanted to have a video where I explain my opinions. And I know there's going to be two types of people watching this video. The people who actually want to, know how do I get in the Cosmere, and the people who are already in the Cosmere and have their own opinions. And I welcome them. We can discuss it. It's all great. Really, though, I just want to discuss Brandon Sanderson books. So if you have, a favorite, novella that you've read, that would be great to talk about, because I feel like no one talks about the novellas. There's one with an island with awesome birds, and no one talks about it. Anyways, I am a fangirl, obviously, and I don't geek out about it all the time on my channel, because I know he's just ubiquitous on the internet. But I really did feel like I had a unique perspective having been reading this series since 2007, and I just, if you wanted to know what it was like reading it as the books were released, I think it was great. I've been having a wonderful time. I have no regrets, and I'm excited to keep reading these for 30 more years. So yeah, like, subscribe, comment, but hope you have a great day. Bye.